What's up, Green Bay Packers fans? Welcome back. As always, thank you for joining me. My name is Paul Brattle. Today we're going to discuss the news about Christian Watson. His injury, Packers are going to be without him for the playoffs, and that is going to be a big loss for this offense to overcome with or without the ball. Christian Watson's presence brings a different dynamic, different element to this Green Bay Packers offense. But before we dive into all that, you know what to do. Hit like on the video, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate it. Find all my work, including the article version of what we're discussing here today in every one of our videos, over at ESPNLacrosse.com. And my Wisconsin sports fans, Packers, Brewers, Bucks, Badgers radio, download the 105.5 ESPN Lacrosse app for your Wisconsin sports radio needs. So, like I said, we're going to discuss Christian Watson's injury. The Packers are going to be without him. He left, as we all saw, Sunday's game in the first half with a knee injury. It was a non-contact knee injury as he was running a route on a play, and reports came out Monday morning that Watson had suffered a torn ACL. Matt LaFleur then confirmed that on Monday afternoon. So like I said, the Packers are going to be without Watson for this upcoming game. And again, massive loss for an offense that, if you go back and watch the last video, the passing game in particular, and this, Jordan Love said after the game, it's been stagnant. And getting back on track, finding that burst, finding that juice is going to be more challenging now that they do not have Christian Watson in the mix. Obviously, this is a talented Packers wide receiver room, but no one else on this roster, from a size, speed combination, the route running ability mixed in with that, does what Christian Watson does, adds what Christian Watson adds to this offense. The obvious element that's going to be missing is his big play ability, the ability to stretch the field, make those downfield plays. On the season, Watson totaled 620 yards on just 29 receptions, had 2 touchdowns. I talked about this about a month ago now, but there was a stretch after the bye from weeks 11 through 14 where he caught 10 of 16 passes for 331 yards. He was averaging over 33 yards per catch during that 4-game span. And again, that wasn't on 2 or 3 receptions. That was on 10 receptions. He was a big play spark for this offense. And as we've seen in the recent weeks without him, that's part of the equation, I believe, for some of the issues that the passing game has had, again, over these last couple of games. And like I said, the previous video, go check that out for a deeper dive into that aspect of it. But on the season, again, the big play, downfield ability it's Watson's bread and butter, right? 37.5% of his targets, according to Pro Football Focus, came on passes of at least 20 yards downfield. That's the 8th highest rate in football among receivers. Overall, he averaged 21.4 yards per catch this season, 3rd highest rate in football. Josh Jacobs said it best after the Vikings game. He is a different type of player than most in the NFL with that size and speed, and particularly on this Packers team. But his impact goes beyond just the stat sheet. It goes beyond just his ability to stretch the field and, again, provide that big play presence. One, a really willing and capable blocker in the run game, just as the other Packers wide receivers are. Something Matt LaFleur talked about on Monday, one of the aspects that they're going to miss is his versatility. You can move Christian Watson around the offensive formation. He can play any one of the wide receiver roles as needed. And with that size, speed, route running, he has the ability to win at all levels of the field. Again, downfield, his bread and butter, what he's known for best, but he can win in all parts. He can be a target in all parts of the field. Look at that Week 11 matchup against the Chicago Bears. Shallow, intermediate crosser, end of the game, gets a one-on-one matchup. It's going to be difficult to cover Watson over the middle in that space. Obviously makes the catch, picks up all the yards after the catch after that. And I think that was a part of this Packers offense that was untapped to a degree, right? Getting Watson more specific targets in different areas of the field, I think, was, again, an untapped part of something else that this offense could have dialed up come the postseason. So again, there's these other elements that Watson brings to the table, but just being on the football field, even if the ball isn't going his direction, there's an impact there because of his presence, because of a gravity that he has. Again, that downfield ability. Defenses are wary of it. They know it's there. That draws the safeties. That draws defenders in his direction as a way to try to be close by in case those opportunities are coming. So what's the trickle-down effect of that? One, there's better spacing, right? Defenses are more concerned about getting beat over the top. There's more opportunities on those short to intermediate routes, especially over the middle of the field. There's more spacing that's created. There's also defensive backs who will lean Christian Watson's way a little bit. That can create advantageous matchups for other pass catchers, one-on-one opportunities, and again, additional spacing. Over these last couple of years, go back and pick out some Romeo Doubs touchdown passes. There's a number of them where, because of the attention that Christian Watson draws, it's helped put Romeo Doubs in a one-on-one situation that he was able to take advantage of. So again, massive trickle-down effect to the rest of the offense, to the rest of the passing game, by him not being on the field. Jayden Reed, I believe, said this last season. Defenses defend this Packers offense differently when Christian Watson isn't out there. Because on the flip side of all that, we talked about the positives that come from having Watson and his big play ability just on the field. But on the flip side, when he's not out there, if defenses aren't worried about getting beat over the top, that shrinks the field, right? They're not as concerned about getting one of the pass catchers running past them. They're going to play a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. They're going to sit more comfortably in that too high look, taking away that big play element and then forcing the offense to, one, have to steadily move the ball down the field, right? If you don't have that big play element where you can pick up those 20, 25, 30-yard gains, the way that you're going to have to score is putting together 8, 10, 12 play sustained drives and plotting the ball down the football field. And for the Packers right now, their offense, the way it's operating, that's a tall task because they're not operating, particularly in the passing game, at an efficient level. So if they're not able to generate those chunk plays, and since the beginning of the season, that's been one area where Green Bay's been really, really good this season on the offensive side of the ball. But if they don't have that element, it's now forcing a disjointed and inconsistent passing game to have to put together long drives. And that's very challenging. It's also very challenging to put up a lot of points that way, right? Because one, it's just more difficult to put together those long drives, especially a number of them. It takes time to do it in terms of just time of possession. So there's just added challenges that come with not having that big play element on the field. In addition to that, as I was saying, when the defense isn't afraid of that deep ball, they'll play a little closer to the line of scrimmage, right? Because they're not worried about getting beat over the top. So that spacing that we talked about earlier that Watson helped create, that's gone. Those short to intermediate routes over the middle becomes more congested because there's more defenders in a confined space. There's also an impact that it can potentially have on the running game. Because there are more defenders closer to the line of scrimmage, it can be more difficult to generate those chunk runs on the ground. So there's a big trickle-down effect, again, of not having that vertical presence within your offense. And I think recently the Packers' performance against the Minnesota Vikings is an example of that. After the game, Matt LaFleur talked about how Minnesota had done a really good job of taking away the deep ball. So like we just talked about, when you don't have that element, when you're not able to take those opportunities, when you don't have a player who can go out and just win that matchup downfield, forces your offense to have to plot the ball down the field very meticulously. In addition to that, LaFleur also said after that game that the Vikings' usage of man coverage in that game caught Green Bay off guard. They weren't necessarily expecting that. When you get those man coverage looks, at the end of the day, you can draw up the best play, you can do your best to try to scheme players open, but you got to go out and win your one-on-one matchups. And with Christian Watson, again, that size, speed, route running ability, he's one of the best on this team at being able to just go out and win that matchup. So that's an element that, again, missing from this Packers offense, and it's just going to have a trickle-down effect and make a lot of other factors that come with moving the ball a lot more difficult for this Packers team moving forward. Now, two names to watch, because again, they have to find a way to generate this element. They're not going to replace Christian Watson for all the reasons that we just mentioned, but they have to find a way to at least have some sort of downfield presence that the upcoming defenses respect, that they have to be mindful of, because again, it can help open up opportunities elsewhere. So Jayden Reed has, throughout his 2 seasons now, had some opportunities to be a downfield target. Bo Melton with his speed. We saw the Packers try to push the ball downfield to him in that Minnesota Vikings game. Those are 2 players that I would be watching in this upcoming game to potentially give the Packers a boost, some juice in that regard, because they're going up against a really, really stingy, a very, very good Philadelphia Eagles defense. And again, if that element isn't out there, if the Eagles just are not concerned about getting beat over the top, that becomes a much more difficult matchup for this Packers team, especially when you consider that, like we talked about already, the offense, the passing game just is not clicking right now. There is a switch that is going to have to be flipped for this Packers team, and they're going to have to do it without Watson, which obviously becomes a much more tall task for all of the reasons that we just discussed. The run game against the Eagles is going to be important, right? It always is. It's been the catalyst for this Packers offense a number of weeks this season. It'll be important to keep them ahead of the sticks, right? So they're not in those predictable long down and distance passing situations where an already good Eagles defense now has the advantage from a coverage standpoint. Their pass rush can pin their ears back. Packers have to stay out of those situations, but a good run game can also help set up some play action opportunities, some manufactured downfield opportunities that the Packers will need to exploit, take advantage of when those opportunities arise. But the run game can't be everything. I do think this is going to be more of a Josh Jacobs heavy game. But like we talked about in the last video, the margin for error when the run game is your only avenue for moving the ball consistently is razor thin. If you don't get those 4, 5, 6 yard runs on early downs, again, you're behind the sticks, plays into the defense's hand against a very good Eagles defense. Having to overcome that consistently throughout this game on Sunday is going to be incredibly difficult. In addition to that, going up against a high-powered Eagles offense on the other side of the ball, Packers are likely going to have to put up some points in this game. They're going to have to get off to a fast start, and scoring a lot of points in a game where your, again, main source of offense is running the football, not going to be an easy task. So they need the passing game to turn things around. That is the biggest thing for me going into this game if the Packers are going to win. The passing game has to turn around. It has to be more consistent, has to be better, can't be disjointed. They have to find ways to generate those big plays downfield, and then marrying that ability with a strong running game. Now we're clicking. Now we're talking. Now I think this offense, again, not going to be easy against Philadelphia, but they'll at least be in a better position to potentially have that success. So again, this is going to be a tough loss for the Packers to overcome, but that downfield element, again, there's no replacing exactly what Christian Watson does, but that downfield element, they're going to have to find a way to manufacture that. They're going to need Reed, Bo Melton, whoever it might be, to step up and do their best to try to fill that role if this team is going to go on any sort of potential playoff run. So there you have it, my friends. If you made it this far in the video, one, I appreciate it, but you might as well hit like, you might as well hit subscribe on the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Like I said at the start, you can find me on Twitter at Paul_Brettel. Find all my work, including the article version of what we discussed here today over at ESPNlacrosse.com. Download the 105.5 ESPN Lacrosse radio app. And until next time, friends, take care.